Hey, I want to make a quick follow-up video today to a video I did yesterday. Well, actually, behind-the-scenes secret here. I actually did that video earlier today. That's why I'm wearing the same shirt, but I'm not posting this till tomorrow. But I want to make a video today following up on the video I made yesterday where I said, if you choose to carry around in the chamber of your carry gun or not, I don't care. I don't think it makes a big difference. Don't think it's ever going to affect you, and I know it's never going to affect me, so I don't care. Well, immediately a lot of people came on my comment section of that video and said, how can you give such bad advice? I've seen too many cases where people have to shoot immediately or someone runs up and puts a gun in their face. You know, just a bunch of word vomit from people who don't have any idea of scale or how to calculate risk or likelihoods or whatever. And yes, you can find situations like that. You can find examples of someone running up immediately on someone putting a gun in their face, or someone who had to draw and fire immediately. Those do happen. I acknowledged that in my last video, but it's not common. It's not common at all. That's part of evaluating your risks. Now, I know a lot of people like to make it seem like it's common, especially people, you know, who are failed prosperity gospel ministers who decided they couldn't make money in that anymore, so they went to the internet and tried to manipulate people through fear and blah, blah, blah. Those people like to make you think it's common, but it's not. But you know, when you're figuring out your own personal risks to decide what you want to do and what you don't want to do, you take that into account. If you're like, I'm a computer programmer in Fresno, California, I usually don't go out after sundown, blah, 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 you know, whatever your circumstances are, and you decide, I don't really want to carry around in the chamber because I just don't want to have a chance of a negligent discharge, hard to say that word, more power to you. You know, do what you want to do. And don't let people say, oh, that's so stupid, because it's not. You've figured the odds. Now, if you work behind the counter of a pawn shop somewhere in South America, well then, yeah, you might want to be like, yeah, I need to have a gun that's ready to go. No thumb safety, round in the chamber, blah, blah, blah. Because you might get attacked at any moment. Might be the same if you work in a pawn shop here in a bad part of town or even in a good part of town. Someplace that's likely to be robbed. You know, if you're working in a gun shop, those people carry guns. There's a good reason. So you evaluate your own risks when you take those, when you make those decisions. Those things that you see on the internet, these outlier events, those are outliers. Because what you'd have to do is you'd have to take into account what are the circumstances of that attack. Like that one where the people are like, you should always have an AR ready in your house because this guy had like 6 guys try to break in forcefully into his house and you had to fight him off with an AR. Of course, the part they failed to tell you is that guy was a rival drug distributor and these were a rival drug gang, a cartel members, coming to his house to raid him after he shorted them on money or something like that. But, you know, they forget to give you those circumstances. If you're not a cartel member, you probably don't have the same chance of that happening to you. Same thing with deciding whether to carry around in your chamber or not. You evaluate the risks, and risks are different for every person. Some people live riskier lives, some people live safer lives. Now, I'm a firm believer of being prepared for the worst, even if the worst isn't likely to happen, but not the very worst. You know, I'm not prepared to take out 50 ninjas. I could try to walk around being prepared to take out 50 ninjas, but when the risk of that is so low, it kind of seems funny that I would make myself that uncomfortable all day just in case I am attacked by 50 ninjas. So you got to remember, take things into account when evaluating your own risk. These examples from South America or people who work in pawn shops, blah, 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 they don't pertain to everybody, and they're few and far between. In fact, I bet if you did a mathematical comparison of how often does that happen, and someone might lose their life because they couldn't fire immediately, compared to how many people lose their life through an accident with a loaded firearm every year, you'd probably see this column's quite a bit bigger than this column, especially depending on how you carry. That's another thing you do when you evaluate risk. You're like, hey, I just saw 50 cases of people that were severely injured during negligent discharges when I was doing my research, and 35 of them were carrying a specific way, so maybe I won't carry that way. That's part of risk assessment. You have to have numbers. You don't base things you do in your everyday life on the worst case possible scenario, unless you're someone who's willing to make yourself uncomfortable all the time. So if you decide you don't want to carry it around in your chamber or anything like that, As long as you're carrying a gun, I'm happy. Concealed carry is actually even just a tiny part of what the Second Amendment's about. It's not even about that at all, but that's one tiny little side effect. And I encourage everybody to carry. But if you're someone who owns guns, like if you have ARs in your safe and shotguns and everything else, but you're like, I don't want to carry every day, I also respect that. Because your chances of needing it are very slim. But you're still prepared in case something else happens other than a personal attack on your everyday, during your everyday existence. So there are degrees. And I'm happy with any of those degrees you want to choose. Like I say, evaluate your own life. Evaluate your own risks. You don't have to base your choices on worst case scenarios. Some people want you to. Those people I find are usually the people that are least prepared for anything anyway. Because if you're that paranoid, usually that paranoia erodes your ability to actually be able to deal with situations. Now I'm talking like a psychologist. But just evaluate the risks. Learn how to keep things in scale. Learn how to do comparisons. Learn that things don't exist in a vacuum. That guy in Brazil getting shot in the face because a fellow gang member runs up on him and shoots him because they think he snitched to the cops and he got caught on a camera. That doesn't mean that that's likely to happen to you. If you look at a video where someone who's using the same holster you are, carrying the same gun you're carrying, and they have an accident or a negligent discharge, well then yeah, you can think, hey, a lot of those things I have in common with that guy, so I'm worried about that. I'm not worried about this guy over here. It's kind of like that guy that, people raided his house, like 6 guys, and he fought them off with an AK. And everyone's like, that shows you should have an AK ready in your house. No, that guy was a drug dealer. And those were cartel members that he had shorted. So that's not likely to happen to you unless you're a drug dealer that owes the cartels money. So you got to keep things in perspective. Like I said, know your own life. Know your own risks. Assess those risks. Do the math. Make your own decisions, because in the end, the only person that has to be happy with your decisions is you.
Oops.
Go ahead.
Step into the lady at 46 South Road. 46 South Road.
Station 1 call, retone that please. 10-4. Captain 4 to go to that location also. 1-9, is that correct?